We're rolling.
We were talking and someone mentioned HPV. We'd all heard of the virus. Most of us knew that it is a sexually transmitted virus and that recently a vaccine has been developed. Half of us knew that HPV can lead to genital warts and cervical cancer. A few knew that HPV stands for human papillomavirus.
Worldwide, HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection.
Based on studies completed in developed countries, an estimated 50 to 80% of sexually active women became infected with HPV at some point during their lives.
Cervical cancer, often caused by HPV, is the second most common cancer among women worldwide.
Cervical cancer is a huge issue at a global level. There are almost 500,000 new cases of cervical cancer every year, about 270,000 deaths from cervical cancer every year, and about 80 to 85% of those deaths are in developing countries. It's my own sense from living in this country that the whole idea of HPV is just very recently being understood. In Peru, we found that HPV as a concept was very poorly understood at all, that the idea of human papillomavirus was not understood. But there is an understanding of cervical cancer as a very serious disease, as one that can lead to death, as something that's associated in some way with sex.
And the problem is like people never relate cervix cancer to HPV or any sexual transmitted disease. It's like they don't make the connection. In the 100% of the population that have access to this, they detect the problem, but the government doesn't have the capacity to give any solution. Yeah, I think for me the key issue is to work with teenagers, thinking about the future.
And in Peru, that work is a little bit more involved because the vaccination is actually starting in this school year. So what we've been doing is talking to local people, talking to the school-age girls in Peru, 5th grade girls who will be the age group that are vaccinated, talking to parents of those children, talking to school teachers, talking to healthcare providers. So in Peru, we've understood that there's that gap about understanding that there's a virus that's involved as a key message that needs to be part of communicating about the cervical cancer vaccine. I guess our hope is that countries will be able to make good decisions about how this vaccine fits into their broader cervical cancer prevention programs. And our hope is that this vaccine may provide a way for developing countries to be able to effectively address the problem of cervical cancer, which has been a problem that's been exceedingly hard to address in developing countries through the current strategies. Pap smears, for example, have worked quite well in reducing cervical cancer mortality in developed countries, in the United States and in Western Europe. There hasn't been a similar reduction in cervical cancer mortality in developing countries. And so our hope is that the vaccine might be able to play a role in reducing that cervical cancer mortality.